Tekken was my first proper fighting game, so I never really appreciated how obtuse it can be for a new player compared to other games in the genre. However, I recently started playing Killer Instinct inspired by That Blasted Salami's excellent character overview series, and it's really opened my eyes to how ridiculously complex Tekken really is. Now, to be fair, Killer Instinct seems like naturally quite a welcoming game, and I'm coming into it now with previous fighting game experience, but it is also my first proper go at a 2D game outside of a few hours of Mortal Kombat 11. I used to think that Tekken would be less complex than 2D fighters because of its more grounded gameplay approach, but that really isn't the case. On a fundamental level, Tekken's system demands its players to be on point with every decision, be it through difficult execution or movement or an absurd amount of knowledge checks, and this skill and knowledge is difficult and time consuming to obtain. When I was first starting, I just assumed that this was par for the course for fighting games in general, and that they were all this insanely difficult. So you can imagine how strange it felt to start Killer Instinct and very quickly be able to understand and use the game's systems. Even in a fighting game sub-genre that I'm not familiar with, I was able to identify basic dynamics of the game and extrapolate on them in ways that make sense, without needing to spend countless hours practicing execution or movement, or even having to lab characters because the characters have an actually sensible number of moves each. Now, granted, I'm still absolute dog shit at Killer Instinct, but at least I've only been playing it for a few days, and I'm able to keep up with and even sometimes beat people of the max rank. I'm not floundering around completely lost because I haven't gone through an impenetrable lexicon like Tekken has. Killer Instinct even has a tutorial that you can sit through in like 30 minutes, because you don't need 100 experts to explain all of the nuances of every part of the game. Starting out in Killer Instinct feels like putting on a pair of soft slippers, while starting out in Tekken is like trying to fight your way through a meat grinder. This just goes to show how Tekken could really stand to work on its accessibility, with a tutorial system in-game that in some way tries to introduce players to its systems and helps guide them along their gameplay development. As it stands, starting out in Tekken is kinda like being thrown in the deep end of the Mariana Trench, and really the game is so complex and nuanced that the tutorial would have to be huge, and the developers may fear that this would be too daunting to new players. And I think that it is because of Tekken's depth and because of the inability to explain it in any reasonably concise way that the community around the game has grown so large. The amount of content trying to support players of every skill level is massive, and you could spend forever just discussing every aspect of the game, which obviously I love because I'm here doing it now. It's very unique in its complexity, and whether you love it or you hate it, that means the game's just always going to be a real Everest for new and experienced players alike. You could also argue that because a game has a less deep and complex system, while it might be easier to learn, it is also less rewarding overall, and I think you would be absolutely right. In my opinion, Tekken is the most rewarding game thanks largely to its unique difficulties. That doesn't mean Killer Instinct and other games can't be incredibly enjoyable though. It's a really nice change to be able to just get into a game and have fun. It's far too easy for Tekken players to just focus entirely on playing Tekken because of its complexity, and the rust really does set in quick. It can be quite daunting to try other fighters because you worry it might push some of the Tekken knowledge out of your brain, especially if Tekken is your first fighting game like me. But taking a break allows you to experience what other games have to offer, and they're generally really fun. And you don't really need to worry because other games are much more accessible and welcoming, which is a really nice thing to have and might even lead to you getting burnt out on Tekken less quickly. Because it is so complex and punishing, it's easy to get tired of it very quickly, and playing other games can be a good way to combat this. Even if you decide you don't like other games as much as Tekken, experiencing them in contrast can let you appreciate Tekken in a new light, while also providing you with much needed rest from it. Fighting games are a broad genre, with tons of stuff to offer, so if you haven't already, I recommend you get out there and give some a go. Thanks for watching this video. I know I've talked a lot about Killer Instinct in this one, but it really is a great example of a much easier fighting game to get into, and playing it really put my struggle with starting Tekken in perspective. Not to mention how much fun I've been having with the game. I'd highly recommend it to anyone, even if you've never played a 2D fighter or even any fighting game before. I'm thinking I might make a dedicated beginner's guide / recommendation video for it soon, so please let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in seeing. Also, I've started streaming Killer Instinct as well as Tekken over on my Twitch, and I might play even more games in the future. So if you'd like to come by and have a chat, please follow that and follow my Twitter for notifications of when I go live. Thanks again for watching this video, and have a lovely day.